some astrology.
That was supposed to be the parties, the little it was not good.
That just made my day.
Let me try. No, it's getting worse.
Our outtakes are the fucking best.
A galactic purr of KKs
invites you to Space Cats Happy Hour.
Let your mind relax. We meet in a dimension outside of time,
where the playfully curious thrive.
So go on, fill your tin cup chalice with the sacred elixir of creativity. Laugh till you breathe violet flame at the theme's absurdity. And above all, let out your full-throated song with us.
Here at Space Cats Happy Hour, with the galactic purr of KKs.
Welcome to Space Cats Happy Hour, where a tesseract of KKs lovingly trash talk the absurdity of existence. I am American KK, and my lovely co-host, Canadian KK, is with me.
Hello.
We are don't really have a plan for this, what we're talking about. We're just going to talk about how we're feeling. The end of the year. This is actually New Year's Eve when we're recording, and we'll see where the episode takes us. I don't know about anybody listening, but I've had a week. And I swear to fuck, I say that every fucking week, but this week has been in particular it's like this 2021 does not want to let go. It's like, no, let me just keep punching you in the face until you lie on the floor one more time. Thank you.
That reminds me of one thing I wanted to bring up, which was I never feel like the year is over until Chinese New Year happens.
Me
and
too.
I always feel like that period in between our New Year's and Chinese New Year is like this limbo. And I also, it's interesting because like so many things have been talking about how February is like, we got to just make it to February and stuff. And what's interesting is usually Chinese New Year is like midway to later in the month. And it's like really early, if not like the first or something. Anyway, it's super, super early. So I was like, well, that's very interesting.
Yeah. I like that you said that, because January never feels, I love New Year's Eve because it feels like a nice ending in one way, just because Western culture, fucking whatever. But, and I always enjoy that tick off into, January 1st or whatever. I always watch When Harry Met Sally on New Year's Eve. It's just the best tradition. I just love it. And I get high and it's great. Anyway, but I feel the same way, because like January to me feels very limbo-y. And then sometime in February, that's when it feels like the new year actually kicks in. So yeah.
Which also, I think, like I was thinking about how people say like energy and stuff, like energy doesn't have hard lines. So it makes sense that there's always like this kind of more limbo-y transition era. And I've been doing more oracle cards. I cut out so many phrases that I'd forgotten about them, and then this one just presented itself to me a few days ago, and I was like, oh, that's a big one. I'll put the card up, but it says this shall end. And the image that I chose, it's this tiger that's like pushing up against a mountain, like almost like trying to move the mountain with its will, but just like the mountain won't budge, that feeling. So I do feel like that is that energy of 2021 that 2021 brought, of like resistance, and you're beating your head against the wall feeling. Beating your head against a huge mountain feeling we're gonna see movement tonight. You see the sun peeking out behind the mountain.
I love that card.
It's from a children's book that I had. It's really, really cute book. But yeah, so I think, we're also like, I know that the past few weeks have been, I was initially on the full moon, on the last full moon of the year, I was planning to offer this group healing, which was the Island of 1,000 Years of Healing, which has a lot to do with our like Lemurian grief and old earth grief and old feminine earth energy stuff. And it didn't happen because my kitty got sick, and that turned into a whole thing, which ended up making me revisit a lot of things connected to those wounds and that kind of trauma. A lot of like mother wound stuff came up a lot. So I think it also kind of makes sense to me. A lot of times when I'm going to do a healing session like that, those energies will present themselves to me either leading up to or whatever, like around the healing. Like when I did it the first time with you and this other person, like so much stuff came through for me afterwards. So it doesn't surprise me that stuff is coming up to around these healings. Now we're going to do it instead of doing it on the full moon. Now we're doing it on January 2nd, which is the first new moon of the year. So yay.
I think the full moon, which was in Gemini on whatever, December 18th, 19th, whatever the fuck date that was a real exclamation point today. It was very much, well, actually, I wanted to actually go back to your mountain thing that you just showed, your oracle card, because I was in meditation a couple of weeks ago and I was feeling into, I don't know if I was feeling into the energy of 2022, but I was feeling into like how I feel now, as far as like, I've just been dissolved over and over and over. And I feel like a pile of goo, but I also feel very stronger in a lot of ways. And so in the meditation I was doing, and I really cannot remember when this was, it could have been a month ago or like yesterday, I don't know. But I saw myself with a couple other people, just beings. I don't know. We were all kind of laughing. Like we were very tired and exhausted, but like strong and laughing. And we were pushing a mountain, but like easily. We were just like, okay, here we go. We're just going to we got this. Like, and it felt like the energy, like the mountain was the energy of the collapse of civilization, and like carrying people across with us energetically as we all navigate like the death and the rebirth and all the shit that we're doing. And so we looked bedraggled, but like we were having fun. We were just like, here we go, guys. And we were just like kind of easily with our backs against the mountain, just kind of like do. And we were having a conversation. Like it was it was kind of like picking up a moderately heavy box of books that you were moving or whatever, where it's a little bit effort, but it's not anywhere near what feels not doable. Coming
That's
back to
amazing.
I love how our syncs are just you'll bring up something and I'll be like, hold on. And I'll bring up something and you'll be like, hold on. So it helps. The magic feels so nice when that happens. And that's why I wanted to address it, because like I've been feeling like the magic has not really, I know it's always here because we live in a magical world and it's awesome. But the past week, oh man, didn't quite have a grasp on that as strongly as I would have liked. But anyway, yeah. So back to the full moon. The full moon was in Gemini, which was the last full moon in the signs that the nodes were in. So the lunar nodes have been in, so the south node is in Sagittarius, the north node is in Gemini, and it's been there for 18 months since May of 2020. And they're going to be moving into Taurus and Scorpio on like January 4th or something. So very soon. And so that last full moon in Gemini was like the last huge purge of old stories and old wounds. And I felt almost like I was actually sick, like with a cold. And I had felt like I've had a cold for almost 2 weeks now, but I don't actually have one. It's like my sinuses are acting weird. I'm blowing my nose a lot. I've been like crying, and my lymph nodes are a little bit swollen under my neck. And I just feel very and I know that is the energetic purging of a lot of shit. So we just went through a huge milestone of clearing out old shit that doesn't serve us. And we're moving into, so the north node will be in Taurus and the south node will be in Scorpio. And so we're bringing in Taurus energies to flush out the stuff about Scorpio stories that don't serve us any longer. So we're moving into an 18-month phase of like reevaluating our relationship to death, metaphorical and physical. I think I've lost someone this past week, and I think maybe more people will be experiencing that as well, just because we're in a transition and some people are choosing to leave the game and help out as energy instead of in a human body. And also they just want to go play a different game, like whatever. But also it's going to be huge amounts of metaphorical death. Again, like your job will change, your relationships will change, so many things will feel like they've been ripped away and that you're dying and your ego is dying and all this stuff. But it's to help us reevaluate how we relate to death and how we relate to spirituality, the occult, just anything that's kind of Scorpio. So anything that you're holding on to that feels yucky, Taurus energy, which is like, Taurus is like, I know this is temporary, so let me enjoy this body. Let me enjoy the earth that's so beautiful. Let me enjoy tastes and touch and colors and sensations and hearing good music. Like just bring in all that good shit that makes us enjoy living in this temporary existence. It's going to feel nice and fresh, even as we're like, the harder you hold on to like your old stories about death and, all that stuff, you'll feel that harder. But if you can kind of relax into it and just watch the changes happen and the collapse happen and all this good shit, it'll be a little bit easier, but it's not going to be, a piece of cake. As we've seen the last 18 months, these nodes are no joke. But I did want to say one thing about these nodal placements. I was listening to a podcast about the nodes in general, and in one Persian tradition, the nodes are exalted. So basically like supported and doing lots of good work with the stories that they're trying to help us in. So in the Persian tradition, the nodes were exalted in Gemini and Sagittarius, which they've just been in. And in another Indian tradition, the nodes are exalted in Taurus and Scorpio, which we're going into. And that to me, I'm getting goosebumps because that to me felt like this 3-year period, the 18 months that we've just finished or finishing in January 4th, and then going into these next 18 months, they feel so huge as far as transformation. And that's what we're seeing, this whole death of the world and the old matrix and all the shit. It's just going to be a very interesting time. And the people who have done their work as far as surrendered this year of 2021 and been like, okay, guys, I know I can die a million times and still be okay. It's going to be a little bit easier, but there's going to be another wave of people coming online who have not gone through that yet. So a lot of dark night of the soul people are going to be coming onto the grid, and we're going to have those steady legs while the currents try to, take us down. We're going to be okay, but there's still going to be a lot of stuff going on with the collective. So that should be fun.
Well, I was just going to say with the Taurus thing that you're saying, like, it's an acknowledgement of the temporariness of existence on Earth. It made me think of that phrase that came to me in the night, which was, so sometimes in the hypnagogic state, that's when like I'll get like clairaudient, like sentences will just start, like words will just start running through my head or phrases, and it won't be something that I'm thinking about. It will just come from this other place. I like it. It's cool. But this one was nothing will last that long. So I feel like that's relevant, but I also feel that is also because in 2022, we're going to be jumping on and off timelines so quickly. So if, for example, if things that happen that seem really, oh no, this is happening, we can't, and then it's going to be like, oh, that was like, that was over before it even started, kind of thing. Okay. At the collective level, probably at the personal level too, but individual level. But
interesting, because I'm not as tied into the timelines as you are. I think you are pretty good at feeling into them. I just feel like I'm underwater and can't really see. I don't know. I can't really feel it as much as you can. Do you have any other, what do you mean exactly by hopping different timelines?
Well, it was, this was more when I was doing my first attempt at scrying using the river, which I find now the river is but you can get omens from literally anywhere, but the river was fun. And it was that thing where it was like all these little rivulets just crossing each other constantly, making this like diamond weaving pattern, but like so fast going in and out. And I was like, oh, whoa, that is like just constant timeline shifting and timeline like weaving.
Okay. So I think that maybe is what I'm feeling with, because when I see it for me, and like when I say the people who have done the work, I I don't mean you're bad if you haven't done, I just mean like, if you feel like you've been through the ringer in 2021, you're coming out with more of that strength that will help us all deal with the people who are going to go through what we just went through last year. I guess that's kind of what I'm thinking. And I see us as like in an ocean where like our heads are above the water, but the currents are trying to just, knock us over. But we have these strong, steady legs and we're just like, okay, cool, dude, you're whatever. So maybe I do feel it in timelines without knowing how I'm actually doing it.
Yeah, totally do. You had something else you wanted to say about the nodes?
Not the nodes. So there's also what Venus is doing a nice little transit in Capricorn right now. And she's going to be there. I think she's been in retrograde since like November 19th or something like that. Or the shadow was, I don't know, whatever. Venus is basically doing like a big sort of sweep through Capricorn, kind of like a broom going back and forth. So like she was direct and now she's retrograde and then she's going to go direct again, I think on like March 1st. And because of the placements with Pluto and then Mars, there's a couple of different things going on there. So basically we've been in this for a while since, mid-November with the shadow retrograde, and then we'll be in it sometime in April, I guess, when she finally gets out of Capricorn. So it's it's about 4-month period of us being asked to reevaluate the things that we value. So not just relationships, but like money and what we spend our time doing and whatever. And because it's in the sign of Capricorn, which is very much like boundaries, it's going to be like, what do you actually want? Both out of yourself, what you're willing to give to people that you maybe thought was okay before, but now you're like, why am I doing this for someone else? Because I don't have enough energy for my own self, kind of thing. And it's also just boundaries of, how do you relate to other people and what do you want out of your relationships of all kinds? And so that energy is going to be, kind of think of it as a ceremony, sort of. I heard someone else talking about it as a ceremony of really just get in touch with yourself and like the stuff that you've been trying to hide. So Pluto is like the underworld, like stuff that's hidden, all that kind of crap. And so the reason I forget where Pluto is. I think it's it's also in Capricorn. They're conjunct. So anyway, it's very much like the stuff that you've tried to sweep under the rug and ignore in your life about the things that you value, like your own self, your own time, your relationship with yourself, and then your relationship with other people, your money, your energy, how you spend it. That is whatever you've tried to sweep under the rug up until now. You're gonna get to reevaluate that because Venus is like, let's lift up the rug and kind of sweep out the dust and examine that dust and see what's going on. And then the Mars placements, because they're kind of doing a little dance as well, Venus and Mars. And so you'll have the drive to do that, to say what you want to, and it's not going to be like necessarily easy, but you're going to feel that urge from Mars to be like, no, I've got to tell this person I don't like this, or I do like this, or I need that, and including telling yourself those kinds of things. So it's very much the Venus transit right now is it's a good thing and it's really lovely and she's bringing in nice energies, but it will also come with a look at what you haven't examined in a long time that you've thought you could just get away with forever and not deal with. And then the last thing I was thinking about, it was a 2027 thing. It's not really like, we all know 2027 feels ginormous anyway with the Pluto return of the United States or whatever, but also 2027 is when Chiron returns. We discovered Chiron in 1977 and it takes about 50 years to get around, do its orbit around the zodiac. So in 2027, it gets back into the sign where we discovered it. So that's another huge exclamation point of something to look forward to in 2027, where we examine our wounds around codependency and all. So we're going to be in those vibes for another couple of years. But honestly, guys, we've done so much fucking work, and we have I know I was trying not to use the word work for a long time, just to use the word play, because I don't want to think of things as work, but I need to be honest with myself that a lot of the shit has felt like fucking work, and that's okay. Honor when things don't feel like play, even as you try to bring in more joy and play. It has been a lot of fucking work. And so you're doing a great job and you're okay and you're not alone. And it's been really rough. And there's been a lot of moments of joy. And even though I think of this as the worst year of my life, thank you, 2021, it has also brought me a huge amount of love and laughter and things that I just had lost for so long, magic. And so I don't like the shittiness or whatever, but I really appreciate how good I feel about this game we call life. It's not always fun and, rainbows and unicorns, but I have a deeper appreciation of the bigger picture and then my own little microcosm of the bigger picture that is, I wouldn't change it for the world. And it's really lovely. So I know people might be feeling really crappy and that's understandable, but don't worry, we're gonna get there. Oh yeah, the Uranus in Taurus and Saturn in Aquarius, that's a square. So we've been in that for a couple of years now. And it's basically like Uranus in Taurus is like, let's get this new fucking world online. And then Saturn in Aquarius is like, you don't know enough yet to build this new world, bitches. So we're at a square. It's like, a car T-boning another car. The establishment needs to fall, like the old systems that aren't serving us. And that's, Saturn representing the systems. So Uranus is like, we need change. And that's the revolution. And Saturn is like, no, we're not going to fall yet because you don't know enough to build a new thing to replace us yet. So we're still feeling that through next year. And that's another feeling of stuckness. But Saturn will be moving out of Aquarius and Uranus is still going to be in Taurus. So the revolution still has its steam and things are picking up. But this next year, we're going to still feel that stuckness a little bit. But again, it just feels like it's on its last legs kind of thing. So don't worry about next year, how bad and shitty and weird it looks. And I think that what Canadian KK was talking about with the shifting timelines all quickly, we're going to see weird shit happening. Like, oh, is this going to happen? Oh, no, I don't know. But just focus on bringing yourself joy and healing your own self. And you will see that reflected out into the world because Saturn is not going to be in Aquarius forever. So the revolution is here and we're building the new world. It's just Saturn is also telling us we need to know a few more things before we actually just build shit that won't necessarily stand the test of time. We got a whole ass this. Thank you, Ron Swanson.
Does next year feel bad and shitty to you? Because it doesn't feel bad and shitty.
No, it doesn't. Next year feels good to me. It feels smoother and softer. And also next year is a year 6. So 2022. So 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. So 5 is the big change. Like we went through this 2021 as a 5 year and it was a lot of like smashing and changing and like, holy Jesus. And 6 is like the year after the birth. So like it's more caring and soft, like a Cancerian vibe sort of where you're like nurturing and taking care of people. And I feel like that's going to be a big vibe of next year is like how we're going to figure out how we want to take care of ourselves and each other. And it feels much softer, even amongst the collapse that's still happening. It feels a lot softer. I feel good about 2022, but it's just, man, 2021 beat me up so hard. It's hard to like actually portray my enthusiasm for 2022 because I think it's going to be a really magical year, but we're still going to see the collapse. So it's however you choose to look at it, like you can focus on the collapse in a bad way and feel bad about it, or you can be like, look, we're learning how to take care of each other. And this is really awesome. That's
weird. 2020 felt like the year of change to me. 2021 did not feel like a year of change. It didn't have a 5 energy to me at all.
So 2020 was a 4-year, which is like foundations. And that was the year where we were kind of examining what our society really was. So I don't think one number is going to tell you like 4 can only be foundations, 5 can only be change. I mean, those are the main themes, but just because you're examining the foundations doesn't mean you're not also working to change those foundations at the same time. So you're right. I felt the same way about 2020 where everything felt like super change.
Yeah.
We're in an exciting time of being alive in this civilization. I don't know. It's really cool. And on my best days, I can have that zoomed out picture. But this week has not been my best days as I throw myself on the floor in the fetal position. Like, what the fuck?
I was thinking about like what my lesson from this year was. And I think it was that I'm too focused on the minutia of my own life, and it doesn't bring me happiness or fulfillment. And I think that because it hasn't been that long since I had my spiritual awakening, 2019 was when it was for me. And then we immediately went into a pandemic. And before that, I was in a very long dark night of the soul. So there was a long period of like feeling really dissatisfied with things and with my life. And so naturally, you know, I wanted to then, with all of this new information that I was getting about my own power and everybody's power and our ability to change things, it was like, yeah, let's pour that energy into my life. And, you know, I think it's not like something to be hard on yourself too. It's been hard to focus on anything else in the pandemic except for what's right in front of you because we're so closed off from stuff. But yeah, I just kind of had that realization this week. I was like, you know what? I think it's time. I think my resolution, as it were, for 2022 is to think of myself more as a vessel. I really think that that's going to bring me more peace. Yeah, I just think we've had this conversation before where I was talking about this period that we're in right now with this big collective transition. I think it's really hard if you're focused on your life in any kind of human sense to feel satisfied, because I don't think that our souls are like, I don't think our souls chose to be here at this time with that in mind, to be like super hyper focused on like making a human life as like perfect as you can make it. It just doesn't really vibe with going through a huge, massive collective transition ever. And I think trying again and again to make all of this energy fit into my little life and like make it work in that way just brings me more frustration. And that's a really big mental shift for me. I think it's going to take time for it to anchor in to all the levels too, beyond just the mental space. So right now I'm able to understand it intellectually. So it's going to take a while to get to my emotions and my body. Everything starts in the mental for me. But I think ultimately, the less that I'm able to be worried about what I personally want my life to look like, the happier I'm going to be, the more chill I'm going to feel. I think I'm just probably going to have to keep saying that to myself over and over again, which isn't to say that doesn't mean that I think that my life is going to be full of hardship or whatever. I think it's just like not a good direction not a good focus for my energies. It's just not helping anything because it just creates obsessive thought loops. And also for myself, at least, I cannot say enough how focusing on our own life is blocking things from coming in because you're constantly on the alert for it. You know, it's that old adage, if you're trying to fall in love, it's always like when you're like not looking that you find somebody. It's the same thing with everything, right? Like that is everything. And certainly in this year of not having much to focus on except for that, I have seen that play out again and again. So I was like, all right, let's give this a shot. Even saying it makes me tense up. I'm like, I don't want to stop thinking about my life. I don't want it. But I really think it's time for me to try that. I think that's going to be my motto. I like to create little songs. I've had little songs that would sing at different parts of my awakening. When the pandemic started, I had one that was like very protective and stuff. So I think I'm going to start a new one that's about just being a vessel and see where that takes me. It feels weird to say vessel. It feels very religious, but
I know what you mean. But that is so interesting that you're saying this, because I think it was yesterday maybe, or the day before, whatever, it doesn't matter. I was sitting there feeling so just, I can't anymore. And I had, the records open and I just was like, I feel like what I'm doing for myself is just clearing myself to be a clear channel. And I use the word channel, but honestly, when you said vessel, that felt even more, they both fit together in a really nice way. The way those words at least sound in my body. And I think that's Saturn is on your moon right now. And that is never a good, you're like, I don't get wherever Saturn is, you got to fucking surrender. And so what you're saying right now, it sounds like Saturn on your moon. It's very much just, and a couple other things too, but whatever. And I'm feeling that same way where I think I love how you put it into those words where you're not thinking of your own life. And then it kind of freaks us out because we're like, but we have to take care of ourselves. What the fuck? And but what you just said about how you're a vessel and what I was literally just thinking yesterday of like, I guess I'm just being cleared the fuck out to be this clear channel, even though I have no idea where that is taking me. And it is fucking scary. And I don't like that because I like to know things and have security. Hello, I'm human. But it's really helping me hear you say this like that, because I had the edge of that idea, but you just gave me like, it filled in a lot more of that idea where I'm like, you're right. That is exactly what I was on the edge of understanding, but hadn't quite put it into words yet. It's hard, dude. We're doing really well. I want to tell you that you're doing a really good job, even though I'm sure it does not. Like you said, it takes a minute for it to process into all the, emotional body, all the into your bones. But
I'm pretty okay with how my year went, and
good. I
feel pretty okay in general. Somebody asked an interesting question. I liked it. It was like, instead of a resolution for 2022, what's a word that comes to mind for 2022 for you?
That's a really good question. I know that soft.
Oh, that's nice.
It's like soft is some of it, because I still feel like there's going to be, it feels softer. I don't know that it feels like a pillow, but it feels much softer than the edges that I felt this year, like the sharpness. And magic comes to mind in like this lighthearted, fun, joyful way. Yeah, I'm seeing joy.
Oh, nice.
And I see it in like a way that starts in small communities, like even if it's 2 or 3 people, or even if you're just bringing it in the joy that I see is, it feels like it starts really small and then just spreads throughout the year in a really positive way.
Lovely.
Yeah. What about you?
My word for me was free. And I was, at first, when I heard it, I was like, oh, that was like freedom. And it was like, no. And then I was thinking, oh, that's interesting, because, free can be a verb or not. So yeah. But I like that one. I like yours a lot too.
Free though. Oh, that has a nice ring to it. I think that is one of the more important lessons that I have learned this year that I'm taking in. That's part of the reason why those words came to me for 2022, is what I learned this year is that you bring in joy in the midst of the chaos. And the amount of gratitude and love that I feel is fucking astronomical. I did not know I was capable of this much joy, contentment, love. I just did not see that in me ever until this year. And it came through bringing that in for myself, even when I felt the worst, even when we were doing, just before we hit record on this podcast, you were like, do you actually feel like recording? Because I was telling you some really shitty things about my week. And I was like, yes, because this is my way of shaking, like not wallowing in how gross everything feels. Like I've learned to take the opportunities that will make me laugh and bring me out of that vibration of blah and into the vibration of joy. And it can be this, it can be taking a walk, like if I'm having a really gross day at work or something, I'm like, you know what? I am not doing this anymore. I'm not sitting in front of my computer. I am going to go walk outside by the river and just smell the air and hear the water running and just bring it in. And those little things, they seem very small, but they're huge. They bring in so much of that vibration that now that I know I'm able to do that and that it actually works, I'm like, yeah, let's do more of that. So I'm not expecting to have like every moment is perfect. I don't expect that anymore. And I don't even know that it's not that I don't want it. Like I obviously want life to be easy and joyful all the time or whatever, but I'm also at a point where I can appreciate how we did come here to kind of wallow in the, like when I throw a tantrum now, I'm like, I don't judge myself for that. I'm like, okay, enjoy this pissed off feeling, enjoy this anger, enjoy, whatever it is that I'm feeling. I'm like, let it go into your bones. It is okay. This is part of the reason you came here. And if you try to bypass that, it's going to smack you in the face later. So wallow in it now, but know that you're coming out of it even quicker than you ever have in your life, because you have that baseline frequency of joy and love that I'm sure we've always had it, but like I was never really tapped into it. So that was a weird tangent. I don't know why I kept going off on that, but yes, joy free. I like these words for 2022.
Well, it kind of ties into my spicy take. My favorite segment. Well, the part where you talked about not judging yourself if you're having a tantrum, that's the part that I feel ties in. So again, with this whole my kitty Festique being sick and like uncovering so many more layers of mostly just mother wound, that at all different layers that like I was still unaware of, things from other incarnations, some pretty dark shit. The one that was most recent where I was like, oh, that I really had been hiding from myself was I realized that I'm holding anger towards the earth, but it's kind of like I'm holding anger towards a version of the earth that in a lot of ways is just like a projected narrative that we have about the earth. Because I was like thinking about how, we call her Mother Earth. And I was like, yeah, she really is. Like, that's the role she has. She is our mother and we are her children. And then I was like, so then why the fuck do we have to feel like shit all the time about how we're fucking up? I'm like, you are a fucking massive planet. You have the magnitude and the wisdom and the consciousness of a huge fucking planet, and you are our mother. It is up to you to have appropriate boundaries from the get-go, not let yourself be walked all over and then suddenly start freaking the fuck out at us and making everybody feel unsafe and terrified all the time. And like you couldn't give less of a shit if we live or die. Really
wow.
Angry. It directly connects to my own childhood. And that's also why I think a lot of us have these personal mother wounds that are like we're breaking out of. And it's like these narratives that I'm like, I'm no longer going to participate in these what feel to me to be very abusive narratives about this is my mother, but I'm somehow the piece of shit that is like ruining everything just by existing as a human being on this planet. Fuck that.
Wow.
Yeah,
is hitting home.
Yeah. I had wow. Like my mom and I have done a lot of repair and I feel very grateful for that. And I have a lot of wonderful things to say about my mom, but she was very emotionally volatile when I was a child and for many reasons. And she made me feel constantly like I was the abusive one. Like she would straight up tell me, a little child, like you were abusive all the time because I was having meltdowns or couldn't handle things or whatever. And so that's like, I'm like, this is like, I'm not participating in this.
Wow.
And I think, so even as I said that, there's so many layers to it. So I was like, yeah, I am angry. I'm angry that I don't feel safe on earth and I don't feel protected and cared for. And then I was like, okay, so that means you're angry at a part of yourself because you are the earth and the earth is you. Like we're all one. So I was like, yeah. And I was like, this is another aspect of like that feminine energy. We have so much issues around allowing femininity to be very destructive and angry and dark and unconscious and stuff. But that's definitely in play here. It's like we're participating just as much as the earth in existing in this version of reality where the earth allowed herself to become unconscious. So she forgot her own power to the extent that, she allowed things to happen to her instead of just not. And so I think that more than this being about ultimately my anger at the earth, although that is something that I have to like really let it move through me at its own pace and not try to rush it, because it's definitely, as you could hear from my tone of my voice, I think it's also about our own, like we all went into this with the earth together, and we've all got this programming around the necessity of suffering, and like you reap what you sow, which is frankly like some Old Testament shit to me. Like, no, you don't have to reap anything. This is holographic reality. A person can go in an instant from having like being riddled with tumors to being completely healthy, and a planet is just another body like a person. So we can do whatever the fuck. But I think that is what we are going through now, is like moving out of this programming that just because we've made mistakes that we have to like play out, that we just like learning through suffering, that we deserve punishment, that we deserve all this chaos, that's the kind of existence that's how we learn lessons. It's like the old karma stuff, you know, it's like the old version of karma, and the old ideas around how to exist and how important suffering is as a part of existence. And we're moving beyond that, and we're doing it at our own pace, and we don't have to rush through it. But I think that's what it's going to be, is the more of us shed that internal necessity of chaos and suffering and terror, then the more we're going to see a really smooth transition out of some of this shit that right now feels like, oh no, it's impossible, you know, for X, Y, and Z reasons, we're going to have to go through so much chaos. Like I've even, you know, participated in this kind of stuff too, where it's like, oh, well, the Earth's going to do what the Earth's going to do. And it's like, yeah, the Earth's going to do what the Earth's going to do, but the Earth can also do anything at any time. And we can like, you know, we can get onto a different timeline with this. Simultaneously to that, we're also completely restructuring our relationship to death and change, which requires a lot of acceptance of death and change. But death and change are not synonymous with chaos, panic, and suffering. So that's what I think. I think we're moving out of that. And for me, at least, that narrative of like, yeah, the Earth, she's finally taking back her thing by acting like a huge fucking asshole and like destroying everything. Sacred Earth rage stuff. It's like, no, it doesn't work for me anymore as a narrative. Anyway, if it works for other people, that totally is fine. I'm communicating this very raw. So there is still like, when I go, my process of like, when I come to a new thing and something is no longer useful for me, is I have to become so repulsed by it. It's like, you know, when you're like, I think it's that serious thing that Jessica talks about, where it's like very easy to see all sides. So in order to like move away from something, you have to be like, like extremely not attracted to it. So I find that phase hard to get through, because I know it makes me judgmental, and I don't want to communicate judgmental things. But it's like, yeah, so I'm right in the beginning of that phase. So I'm like, fuck it all. Fuck those old stories.
Dude, anyway, I actually hear you. I love that. I mean, that really, when you said that, it really did hit home. It really did. I was like, ooh, yeah, that feels, and actually it brought up, I was watching a video of space shit. I don't fucking like the milk. If you think the Milky Way is if it's like a flat line, I know it's not, but just if you think of it looking like that in the sky or space, the sun it goes below the ecliptic and then above, you know, it has this like 24,000 year cycle where it goes above and then below, and then, you know, all the other planets are doing its thing, and the Earth and blah blah blah. And there's like a old, I don't know what text, like maybe Indian text or something like that. I don't know where the source came from, so sorry, I can't properly quote this, but those are corresponding with ages. So like when it starts its descent below the ecliptic, it starts to descend into dark ages, and then as it turns and goes above the ecliptic, that's when it starts to go into like, so the lowest age is the Iron Age, which I think we're just coming out of, I think, and we're going into the Bronze Age, and then the Silver Age, and then the Golden Age. And it's because of the sun's orbit in relation to Sirius orbit. So as they orbit each other, or whatever, however it works, not an expert on this, guys, so I sound like I'm flailing, and I am, but that's fine. But the way that they orbit at their furthest point from each other, that's where the sun goes below the ecliptic, and those are the dark ages. And then as they come and do a little thing like together, we're starting to come to those closer where they kind of circle each other in their own orbits and then kind of go back around. So we're coming into that, what the prophecies, quote unquote, say are the golden ages, and we're not quite to the golden age yet. I think that's when like that's Atlantis type shit or Lemuria type shit, where it's all dimensions together at once. I don't know. And I've actually been thinking about how our own astrology and with these old stories, you know, these planets are giving us these, or at least mirroring these energies that we're dealing with. And as we move out of the old stories, like where, you know, I just was thinking, I was like, well, if Saturn is always the planet of hard lessons, cool. But like, as we heal this shit and go into a new age, do we get different star systems that have different meanings and mythology, or do we have the same planets and they just now mean different things because we've changed our mythology? So Saturn would now be like, you know, your cool older brother who's like hanging out. Like, I don't know. I totally hear you with this fucking, I'm tired of the old stories, and I'm tired of looking at my fucking, you know, astrology chart, looking at like, okay, fuck, I get to look forward to, you know, Saturn going over my moon in another year or so. And I'm so exhausted with the feeling of being abused and manipulated, because that's how it feels a lot to me, just because of childhood wounds and all that stuff. So again, I'm with you on that rawness where it's just like, you got to get it out, no matter how quote unquote bad it sounds, because it's not bad. They are valid feelings, and we are here to honor those feelings because that's what we came here with, to transmute. And if we don't transmute them in 2 seconds, that's fucking okay. We can take our fucking time, because motherfuckers, yes, we asked for this, but like our human selves are at the same time like, I didn't fucking ask for this. Like, I don't want to fucking do this, you know? And it's a lot of hard work that we know we volunteered for it, but at the same time, we need to allow ourselves to really feel all of the negative shit, no matter how judgmental, you know, we're afraid of not only being ourselves, but like from other people or whatever. Because I do the same thing. I judge myself. I'm like, oh my God, I should not be feeling this way. My life is fine. Like, what the fuck is wrong with me? And then I'm like, don't judge that. Pain is not a contest. You just deal with it the best you can, and you come out of it. And we all know we come out of it because it's fine, but you should be allowed to. Anyway, I appreciate your spicy take is what I'm saying.
Thank you. I just, for my own brain's sake, I have to rephrase something that I said earlier. Otherwise I'll drive myself crazy with it. But okay. I think it's really our narrative about the earth that we crapped all over her and now she's taking her power back. That narrative is what is creating this reality with that earth. So I think it's very much like so there's that element too, where it's like, I'm not necessarily even convinced that it's not all entire, like it might just all be a projection onto the earth just from human narratives, and it might not, like the earth might be like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't have those feelings. Like, and we're just seeing it reflected back to us because we have that narrative, and it's like very subconsciously potent. So I'm not 100% sure if I'm actually mad at the earth or just our narrative.
That makes total sense. I mean, honestly, because the narrative, like, it's the stories, you know, you have emotional reactions to stories, and this is a perfectly normal and valid reaction to a story. And again, with that whole series thing of seeing all the sides, you are perfectly aware that this is just one perspective, and you contain multitudes. You are allowed, you have plenty of different perspectives, and you can see it from each side. And it's just
hard
like right now.
A vehement opinion, I tell you. Like, I really feel Jessa when she talks about that, like how hard it is to have a strong opinion, because you're like, you can already see when you're not going to agree or just have it but it's like, you have to. There was a really helpful episode once where P the fairy was on and was just saying like, no, you know, it was so helpful, Jessa, when you were like speaking with conviction about certain things. It was helpful that you had that frequency of conviction in your voice at the time. And I was like, yeah, that's true. You just have to like get it out, even if you know you're gonna feel differently at a different time about it.
Well, this reminds me of our first episode where we were like, this is a space for us to be inconsistent.
To constantly remind myself and reassure myself about that. I find it excruciating.
It is excruciating because we are in these old stories of judgment, and words are weaponized, and you are judged for saying a certain thing and then changing your mind. It's like, we can all see all the this is what the nodes have been. This is the Gemini Sagittarius nodal span of time, where there's literally Gemini is like, here are all the goddamn perspectives. And we're like, whoa, like we were holding on to one of our perspectives, or a couple maybe, or whatever, but Gemini's like, nope, here's all the things. And we're just like, okay, we're integrating the ability to hold space for having all the goddamn perspectives. Thank you, Gemini, but also fuck. That's a lot. So I hear you, and I applaud you for your spicy take, because it really does help to hear that perspective, because one, it helped me put perspective on my perspective. I don't know how to I don't know what I'm saying, but it helped me kind of uncover that, where I was like, oh yeah, I do feel this. And I've been struggling with it. I haven't directed it towards the earth necessarily, but it made a lot of sense.
I directed it towards myself forever. I directed it to myself. That was part of it, was every time I thought about those feelings of lack of safety on earth, I was always going back to blame myself and humanity. And it was like, just like a lot of guilt and shame and feelings of worthlessness.
Yes.
And,
absolute same.
It was like a light bulb to be like, wait a second.
And I think that honestly, the earth can take it. I mean, I feel like planets are consciousness also. So like they have personalities, and they, to me, it feels like the sun is the big brother of the universe. I don't know how other people see it, maybe more of like a father figure, but to me, it feels like that older brother, and the earth is like, they're in this phase now where we're all coming up out of this iron age, or whatever you want to, dark age or whatever. And it's like, okay, to do this, we need to like take kickboxing lessons. So teach me how to kickbox and don't hold back. Like I need to raise me and my children up, but first me, because like I got to get up here or no one's going to get up, so hit me with the light codes or whatever the fuck is happening right now from all the energy that's hitting us. And it hurts, but it's kind of like 2021, where I'm like, I have been smashed into the ground, but it's beautiful. And I'm holding those paradoxes in myself, just like, I don't even know how this is possible, but it is. And it's fucking hilarious. So whatever. So I kind of feel like it's like that, where the planets have their own relationships, and the whole universe is just a family. I don't really know how it works yet, because I don't understand, how we all
I love this perspective.
But it makes sense, though, from that you would say that's why what you said made so much sense to me, because it just feels like a family dynamic. And you can have your own stories about it. Like, you can have, in our childhoods, we felt like victims in a lot of ways, and growing up, like in all kinds of ways, like the abuse and the manipulation and all that stuff. And as we grow older and get those perspectives of like, hold on, this was happening for me, in whatever way you want to interpret that and kind of rewrite that story. But like, this is all a big family, and we are a microcosm in the macrocosm, and your spicy take is fucking valid, is what I'm saying. And I love it.
You know what? I just realized too, I was like, oh no, it's important for me to say that I am angry at the earth and not at a narrative of the earth, because that was my whole thing growing up, was not being able to express anger towards my mom for all the stuff that she was doing too. It was like, she would always twist it against me. So yeah, it's pretty important for me when I'm angry at a mother figure to say like, I am angry at you.
I'm really glad you did, because this is part of healing. You gotta just speak your truth as it is right now. And that doesn't mean that truth cannot evolve. It just means that this is what is true right the fuck now. And it doesn't mean you're not capable of holding all the goddamn perspectives, Gemini. This was awesome. I really liked this. It felt like a good conversation. Thank you doing all this.
Yeah, thank you for those who listened to us in 2021. And
yeah,
we look forward to talking to you again in the new year. Ending this with a little mildly sedated purring kitty.
I wish you could see Fistique. She's very curled up in Canadian KK's arms and just looks like this ball of beautiful, peaceful fluff. And it's making my heart sing. I love her so much.
That's a nice note to end on.
If you have questions, email us at spacecatshappyhour. Otherwise, Happy New Year, motherfuckers. We will see you in 2022. Love you guys.
Bye.